Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Worrall and today I am joined by Ian Macbeth. How are you, pal?
Good, different setup today.
I know, yeah, I don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah, we're on the. If you're listening on the audio, we're actually sat next to each other, sharing a mic and hogging a camera. So very different, north and south combined in the Midlands.
Yes, yeah, after 3.5 hours in the car yesterday and a bit of a nightmare trying to charge the electric vehicle.
Yeah,
Such is life, but we're at our quarterly mastermind over in Leicester today. So ready for a day full of learnings, and why not start it with a bit of extra learnings, a bit of learning for everyone else with the podcast?
yeah. Well, this podcast in particular, I'm going to cover exactly what we're going to kind of talk about in two different parts. But first of all, I just wanted to plug for those that aren't aware. We've got all of the videos on socials now as well. So I just wanted to remind everyone if you're just listening to the audio, but you'd like the little bite-sized reels and clips and you want to follow us, Facebook, Instagram, World Class Real Estate, YouTube as well, if you want to check out the full video, if you want to get us big on the 55-inch telly and watch what's going on our Zoom recordings, see the facial expressions when I drop a bomb or when Mark throws some gold at us, then you can do that as well. But yeah, so we're going to cover fees, aren't we?
Yes, yeah, and I think it's probably not something we've talked about that much recently, certainly, and it's so important. If we're coming to the end of the year and you're looking at the figures and thinking, well, if only we've got another 0.1%, if only we got another 0.2%, that can make a big difference when it comes to the bottom line at the end of the year. So I think it's a good time to have a look at that as you are setting some goals for next year, no doubt.
Yeah, and I think next year, just the way that the kind of economy is going and the way that we're looking at transactions, the stamp duty changes, we always kind of sandbank Q4 as the big banking one.
Yeah,
But I don't know whether that's going to be the same next year. So I think fees are going to be really important for growth for good estate agents
yeah.
and survival for the average estate agents as well. So that's why we want to dive into it. You've got your top three.
Yeah,
I've got my top three. We don't know if they're the same.
we hope they're not.
It could be awkward and very short, this podcast, but we're going to find out. So do you want to go with your number one?
Yeah, well, I suppose it kind of works into why we're here today, why we do the podcast, why we listen to a lot of podcasts as well. My top one is self-development, invest in yourself. I think if you are looking to try and improve your fees next year, it's got to start with you.
Mhm.
It's not just a case with anything, but you can't just decide you're suddenly going to charge more for doing the same. You've got to be better. And I think, a real good way to do that is to engross yourself in learning and, progressing yourself in life. It will give you the confidence and ability to charge more.
Yeah, and I think there's so many estate agents out there that are willing and happy to kind of share these days. There's at
Mm.
least a good circle of people that are not seeing each other as super competitive. You might not want to ring up your direct competitor and ask for this trade secrets, but if you go on the Facebook groups and things like that, people will share things that are working with them,
Yeah,
and that can help as well.
it's never been easier to learn and improve, has it, in our lifetime? And it's getting easier and easier. Podcasts, YouTube videos, very reasonable subscription services if you want to dive in and learn on an ongoing basis. But one of the things that I do that I've been a bit hit and miss with, but some of the guys were asking me last night actually about why do we do this podcast? And for me, it's a real big part of my learning week.
Mhm.
But I also have an hour in on a Friday morning to do some further learning where I will jump into some further learning, whether that's watching some of Matt Steinway videos, going on to Perry Power's Power Agent program, stuff like that is really easy to do and really very reasonable.
Yeah.
But there is loads and loads of free stuff out there to improve yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And you've become more confident in what you're trying to do, which kind of segues nicely into one of my top three, which is stop negotiating with yourself, is what I would say. And the reason why I say that is over the years in agency, the classic phrase of we charge X, but we'll do Y before a client has said anything.
Yeah. Why? I don't understand why that happens.
But it's like a 80-20 rule. I would say 80% of the industry do that.
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
you're right.
they'll instantly, and I don't know what they call it up and down the country, but where I kind of cut my teeth in agency, we used to say drop in your pants.
Yeah.
And instantly you drop your pants, and it's just unnecessary, I believe. And I think there's a couple of different reasons why, and my two and three might kind of lend some support on that. But going into that valuation, going into that appointment with a client, if you're already negotiating with yourself, then you're going to charge a lower fee than potentially what you need to. And that's my big one.
It's just, it's not necessary. That giving one price and then negotiating yourself down to another is just not necessary. And it's certainly not appealing to a client.
Mhm.
I always think you're going to be negotiating on their biggest tax-free asset next. Why would you demonstrate that you are such a poor negotiator that you will negotiate with yourself and give them a better deal? They're not all after the deal. I think that's the misconception with it, and that, oh, we normally charge 1.2%, but we'll do it for you for 1%. What is that for you? Because a lot of people, I think, do that for you for everybody.
Yeah.
And if you just cut that out of your pitch, you would be surprised at the different effects that it has on the bottom line at the end of the year.
Yeah, fix in on what you're going to charge and hold strong on it. And you might have two different brackets. I have a different fee that I charge for leasehold and a different fee that I charge for freehold, but it doesn't wobble or negotiate from that. That's what I charge, and there's no negotiating on it. I don't negotiate myself. I don't negotiate with the client, and I think it shows a level of professionalism and confidence as well. It's not a Moroccan market that we're bartering from here. We're trying to set a professional environment in someone's living room to sell a massive amount of their equity in cash, and you have to do it professionally. And that for me is my number one.
Yeah, and the other thing with it is you're not trying to impress them by giving them a deal. You're not trying to demonstrate that you will always cut a deal. They're not after that. They want somebody who, when they're posed perhaps a difficult question, will you negotiate on your fee, who is composed and who is able to bat it back professionally without, you can be a bit of a dick with it, or you can be very professional and very composed if they do even ask the question. But what you're talking about here is a lot of estate agents preempting the client, asking if you'd be willing to negotiate on your fee. And I say no, and I am pretty blunt with it, because at the end of the day, the fee is not negotiable from our point of view. And I think I've probably lost one client on that. Since we stopped negotiating on fees, probably 4 or 5 years ago.
And I think if there are clients that are not happy with it, they're probably not the clients you want.
Yes,
That's the cheap clients are not the ones we want, are they? It does not help us when you get that kind of fee merchant, because normally they're the hardest work. They never end up selling, and they're the ones that you're happy to walk away from.
It's the reverse of the 80-20, isn't it? It's the 20%,
Exactly.
20% that won't pay the fee will give you the 80% of the work
Yeah.
you don't want to do.
What else you got in the top three?
So my second one is pretty straightforward, really. It's a bit different to what we've talked about already, but it's touch points and increasing your touch points, whereby if you would normally follow up X amount of times, you need to be increasing that to show them that you are better than the rest, to show them that you are maybe keener to get the instruction. And those touch points can be at any stage from when the client books in for you to visit them. And I think you need to look at that process, whether it is before you go, after you visit, in your follow up that may follow in the next few months. But if you can increase your touch points by sort of 20-30%, and there's so many easy ways to do it now with automation and what have you, if you can increase those touch points, I think that is the type of thing that will enable you to charge those higher fees. And potentially, if you are negotiating with yourself, you can do that. The confidence that you get from increasing the service that you offer by increasing the touch points will enable you to charge higher fees.
And I think that's the way the world operates now in buying power. If you just think of a consumer as a normal person buying a product or a service, the world we live in at the moment is very much based on they'll check it out on a Google review or an Amazon review, they'll search it in YouTube, they'll look at it on TikTok, they'll look at it on Facebook, they'll ask a Facebook group. People want that little bit of trust before purchasing even something that's £12.50.
Yeah.
And your estate agency touch points leading up to the point where you're about to explain what your services are and how much you charge, the higher and the better they are, the better chance you have got of someone not questioning your fee and using your service, which is ultimately what you want. So totally agree. It actually sits more or less the same as what I've got as two, which is to be familiar to the client before you get to the appointment.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And that is exactly that. It's building that know, like, and trust, isn't it?
Yeah,
And a great way to do that is by communicating with them
yeah.
more often. So a lot of your stuff will be on social video, presumably, with some of the conversations that we've had previously.
Yeah, all the touch points that you do on your confirmation, even if you're kind of sitting here listening to this as a traditional estate agent, and if you're going to that appointment, you've never met the client, they've never seen your
Mm.
face, you can just add a few extra little bits. Is your image of your portrait image or your LinkedIn profile on your email signature
Yeah,
when you confirm the appointment, because then a face becomes familiar. So that when you knock on the door, they've already recognized you from your email signature. Have you sent them a little introduction 30-second video of what you're going to cover on the
yeah,
appointment? Even better. That's just one thing. If you do all of the social media work, that obviously we do at Avo, and a lot of other good agents do as well, brilliant, because you've built a level of trust and familiarity at
yes,
that
yeah,
point.
yeah,
But you don't have to go crazy with that sort of stuff. Just those simple little things will make a big difference to that client feeling comfortable in
yeah,
inviting you
yeah.
into their living room.
And if you're not making a pre-call, if depending where the visit is booked, if it's booked by the team in the office, if you as the visiting agent aren't making a pre-call, that's a great way to get the appointment off on a good start by having that conversation earlier in the day, or ideally at least the day before. A lot
Yeah.
of agents, I think, miss that step,
Mm.
and it's an increased touch point, but they also are going to know the person who is arriving and what their not what their intentions are, but how they're going to
Yeah.
view things. So it's just a tiny, tiny little thing, but if you can build it in and build consistency with it, it is the type of thing that will improve your fee.
I think one of the big reasons why people enjoy WhatsApp communication more than text communication is very simply because you've got the icon of the person you're
Yeah,
talking with.
yeah, 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 quite
The
possibly.
first time I receive an inquiry to become a self-employed agent with Avocado, I want to move them onto WhatsApp because I want to see what they look like. And then I want to find them on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
And that's the process that I go through. And I would imagine the client is going to go through something quite similar with us as estate agents. In fact, they do because we speak to them. But yeah, that was kind of my number two. What else you got in the top three?
so my final one is again something we were discussing last night over tea, and it's be different. So find what makes you a better estate agent than anyone else in your patch. Double down on it, but also make sure it's not a USP that isn't a USP.
Mhm.
It's not you're open 7 days a week. It's not you're open later than everyone else. Find out what and speak to clients who have used you. I think if you're unsure or not completely confident in what that difference maker is, find out. Ask your clients. Ask clients who have used you and successfully completed their transaction, not just the typical. Ask the clients who don't choose you, because I think the people that you want more of are the people that choose you. So find out what it was about that. Double down on it, but don't be vanilla. Don't just be the same as everyone else, and don't be scared to find out what it is that makes you remarkably different and double down on it.
Yeah, and I think as agents, we try and cover everything
Mm,
often, and we
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of almost bombard the client with, "Oh, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this," and often that's the sales pitch that's just generic. It is vanilla.
yeah, yeah.
The questioning and the questions that you ask the client, if you can think on your feet very quickly and you ask the question to the client of what they're actually looking to do, what they're looking to achieve, what's important to them, what are they most worried about of going into the market, have they got any concerns about working with estate agents or mortgage advisors or solicitors, how do they feel about buyers coming through their
Yeah.
home, these sort of questions, you're gonna almost shape the type of clientele that you're dealing with, and that's when you then knit your
Yes.
USPs,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's 150 USPs for estate agents, and you're very right. If you try and share all of them or even 20 of them,
Mm,
the client will just turn off. But if you find out what they want, what their buttons are, then you know which ones to talk about.
yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And you should really have your identity of eight, nine, or 10 that you kind of work from, but you probably only need to talk about two with
Yeah.
each client.
And I think when you are talking about that line of questioning, it can be different by just talking more about them than talking about you, which I think a lot of estate agents fall in the trap. I hate the term sales pitch, but ultimately part of the valuation, if you call it that, is a sales pitch. You've got to do a little bit of that. But if you minimize that and maximize the bit that you're talking about the clients, that would be something that would probably be remarkably different versus all the others.
Mhm.
And that is about showing the client that you understand them, showing them that this process is something that you know a lot about, but they probably don't in most cases, and how you can find out what is concerning them about the process, or about what they might be feeling a little bit anxious about. If you can demonstrate to them that you understand that, then that is something that is probably going to stand you out from the competition, rather than we give you a premium listing on Rightmove, for example.
Yeah, I think you go into the appointment in two ways. Like you say, you go in with the mindset that you're up against competitors, and it's a valuation, it's a competition, it's a sales pitch, or you just use the word and just think value. If you're going into the appointment to add value to the client,
Mm.
give them a bit of an education. They want to know the price of their home. They want to know how you're going to market it, or how their home should be
Yeah.
marketed. They want to know what are the turn-offs in their property. They want to know what the strategy is. This is the information that they're not aware of that we can supply them with. So we're going there with a view to add value, not necessarily to the price of the home, but to their knowledge of what big step they're about to take. So it is a valuation, but think of it in two ways. You're going there to price a home for them, but to add value.
And I think if you double down on that idea of adding value for the client, there should be a number of bits of information that you give them that will benefit them whether they sell with you or not. And if you can give them more information along those lines, it's kind of that self-fulfilling prophecy that you will earn more money, you will earn higher fees, because people appreciate it when you do demonstrate value and they can take
Yeah.
value from it. And it might be that you turn around and say, look, this is information that will be useful for you whether you instruct us or another estate agent. And I think it's sometimes even just talking through that process shows that you are genuinely there to help rather than just try and win the business.
Yeah, 100%. And the data that we've got, like you said, is so powerful. I mean, there's a lot of talk in the industry at the moment of this second agent selling ratio.
Yeah, yeah.
We've done a whole episode and a whole podcast on it, and it was shared again recently. I think Mark Burgess was talking about it with Chris Watkin recently. And I think if you use that correctly in the valuation, it kind of lends into my third point here, which is if that client's going to instruct the agent they're going to choose is so important, because the amount, like 9 in 10 properties are going to sell with the first agent. So they
Yeah.
have to get this right. But the stat is that only 51% of properties
Mm.
listed in 2024 actually go through to exchange and completion.
It's just insane, isn't it?
So the decision they're about to take on the estate agent is vital, because the ones that do sell with the first agent, and almost 1 in 2 don't
Yeah,
sell.
yeah.
So if they get this wrong, they really get this wrong. It ruins the chance of what they're trying to do on a 50-50 basis almost. So for me, I kind of now feel that you use that in the living room, and the way that you use it is to say, look, this is the data as we've just explained. And what that means is we've got 3 different marketing strategies. We've got the plan A, we've
Yeah.
got plans B, and we've got plan C.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is really important for you to make sure that we go all in on A plan. But if A plan doesn't work, we've got B and C in our locker as well.
Yeah.
And I don't think most agents will talk about that. They're just, this is what we'll do, this is what we'll do. But if you actually really highlight the fact that this is A plan, B plan, and C plan, I think they will feel quite confident in what we're trying to achieve. And I think they'll feel quite confident that you know what you're trying to do as well.
Yeah, and also it means that you are not afraid to talk about failure. And I think that's a really big thing, because people know that not every house sells. The market has changed significantly. And 1 in 2 sales, if you're talking to clients about that, not only, everyone thinks their house is going to sell, it's going to be amazing. But if you put the stats in front of them,
Mhm.
and you are then talking about, look, 50% of people fail in the bid to sell the house. We don't want to be that 50%. So not only are we going to come up with an amazing first strategy, but we're also going to talk about fallback positions, which are this and this. And it just shows that you're not afraid to contemplate the fact that actually, we're not perfect. You don't win every time, but put yourself in a better position of winning by choosing an agent who is not afraid to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And that's part of this, right? Improving fees. The way you started with not negotiating with yourselves, you've got to be able to demonstrate that you can have difficult conversations with people from the outset. And I'd say that we're not there to be a client's best friend. We might be like their best friends for the most stressful 6 to 9 months of their lives. But ultimately, we are their professional advisor.
Mhm.
We're not a nodding dog. We're not there just to say yes. And I think if you can develop that skill set, that will be massive in helping you improve your fees. But a lot of it comes back to sometimes agents just wake up and think they're going to be able to charge more. It's not. You have to be really intentional about this.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
and if you're wanting to do it next year, no, this podcast will be going out tonight for promotion tomorrow, 4th of December. December's a great time to have a look at investing in yourself to try and make your pitch, I hate the term, but make your pitch better, make your ability in the living room to close more better and to close more at higher fees. But it all comes back to being able to demonstrate to the client value and that you can have those difficult conversations.
And yesterday I actually put this on LinkedIn as a bit of a post, and I just read a couple of the bits that came here that I thought was really cool. James Humphrey Stone from The Avenue, we've had on the podcast with his business partner Jack. He just said from my top three, if you improve number two and three, so if you become more familiar and you have a really good marketing plan, number one will simply go away. People will stop trying to negotiate, and I thought that was great. And then
That is great, but it still comes back to your mindset. Number one,
yeah,
it might go away, but you've got to be intentional about making it go away because what we
absolutely.
talked about there is people just negotiating with themselves. So yeah, absolutely, the need or maybe the question of people negotiating with you will go away, but you still have to stop negotiating with yourself.
Yeah, it's that confidence. And then Simon Gates said a quote which I just thought I'd share: "Charge what you're worth, be worth what you charge."
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's probably quite a good way to
nice way to wrap it
to,
up.
to wrap it up because that typifies it. Yeah, very, very well. We need to get Casey back on the podcast, actually. We'll have to tag him in and
We
invite him
will.
in the new year.
There we go. We've thrown the fish hook out there, but we've got some good guests actually coming on. Last week, obviously, Ian Preston's podcast. I've had some great comments
Yeah,
on that as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
So, I mean, he does a whole thing about fee structure on that particular episode. If you missed it, go and check it out because he's talking about upfront fees, which
yeah,
we haven't touched on,
yeah.
which is really cool. And yeah, this particular, episode, I just think there's going to be some value out there for people as they go into 2025 with a thought, because if you can get an extra £200 a case next year, it will make a world of a difference.
Yeah, and I think you talked about economy at the start. The one thing that we can't control is the market and what is going on external to our business.
Mhm.
This is one of those controllable things that you can take and implement straight away. So, as you know, we do this because we love our industry. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please do reach out on social media. I've had a few messages in recent week. It does really encourage us, and it's great to hear that we are adding value for the industry. I'm Mark Worrall. He's Ian Macbeth. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.